here today and kindly joining us, Lord Hastings. It's absolutely brilliant to have you here to share your wisdom and your thoughts with the world.
Oh, thank you, Chelsey. I'm hugely honoured to be here. This is a massively important subject, one I seek to practice, but I'm looking forward to engaging with you over this day.
Thank you so much. So I don't know where to start with your history, your CV and your background. My goodness. Chancellor of Regent's University in London, Professor of Leadership, Vice President of UNICEF. You've received a huge long list of awards and achievements. I remember it's a CBE and a peerage at the House of Lords as well, awarded by Her Majesty the Queen. So huge recognition for your contribution to society. I remember also there's a UNICEF award that you've received for outstanding contribution to children in Africa. With your background, my goodness, that is such an impressive CV. Former Global Head of Citizenship at KPMG International, Head of Public Affairs at the BBC, and then you went on also to be Head of Corporate Social Responsibility at the BBC. I'm sure you're going to tell us a lot more about the different roles that you've played throughout your career when we go through some of the questions. So I'd also like to say thank you so much for supporting our mentoring mission as well, and you know, our quest to make mentoring accessible to everyone. Thank you.
It is vitally important, vitally important.
So we'll start with some questions. I'm passionate about mentoring. As I briefly touched on, I've seen the difference it can make of all ages, all backgrounds. It just changes lives. I know you're a passionate supporter about mentoring. How has mentorship, you know, helped you in your business and in your life?
Well, I've enjoyed the presence of mentors for, I can now say, because I'm in my 60s, for generations. A generation is normally 40 years, so I've kind of passed over into second generation. I met mentors when I was at school. I was at a boarding school in the northwest of England. I was thrilled that both my head of English then and also the headmaster took a huge and keen and positive interest in my personal development. And when I left school at the age of 18, I remember going to a committee meeting in London where I was asked by the headmaster of my school would I attend on his behalf. I went along. There I met someone who was 30, and he became a solid, close and personal mentor and friend. And here we are now. I'm 62 and he's 80, and we continue to be close personal friends. And he's mentored me, supported me, engaged with me over the literally decades. And that's been the case. I'll tell you, one of the most, I suppose, longest title people who was a mentor to me, again, when I was 19, was a wonderful man called Major General Sir John Nelson. And he had KBCO after his name and a whole lot of other long numbers and titles after his name. And he had been a British Army general in the Second World War, responsible for the North Africa campaign in holding the Nazis at bay and not going further into Africa. And it was such a joy for me as a 19-year-old to meet a man who had really done the tough stuff in the sands of North Africa to bring about the freedoms that we also appreciate and to stand up for the justice that was so endemic to him. So mentors all my life and to now.
Fantastic. What a story, and what a great mentor. So I believe that mentoring helps to create a more inclusive society, and you know, through my own mentoring, I've seen the impact that it makes and the difference that it makes. I know that you're co-chair of the all-party Parliamentary Group on mentoring, which is wonderful, with the Diana Award. Why is it important for people to pay attention to mentoring?
Because you see, all of us need other people to help us to find our own North Star, as they might say. In other words, we're all looking for our directional point. What kind of person do I really want to be? What work might I want to fulfill or undertake? What engagement in the world beyond myself should I be a participant in? What organization should I champion? What are the things that I feel are gross injustices that I really want to put my hand to? What is it I want to fix? Who is it I want to fix? How do I want to fix it? These are very big questions for every one of us. And we need mentors because the truth is we need people who've gone before, who walked a path, maybe not the same path, but have walked a path. And we need perspective and wisdom. You know, it's often said that the greatest insights are when you can look back in the mirror. And so you can see with hindsight. Well, hindsight can become foresight if we engage others who've walked before. You know, one of the great travails of being very young, as I once was, and obviously you still are, one of the great travails of being very young is that young people make a lot of mistakes which could be avoided if there was the presence of a meaningful mentor in their lives.
That is so beautifully put, absolutely. And to follow somebody who's walked the path before, to help you avoid those costly mistakes, the time, the stress, the effort, just having that shoulder to turn to, that ear to listen is absolutely invaluable. So fantastic advice there, thank you. I know that you were a trustee for the Vodafone Group Foundation for 11 years, also served 9 years on the board at British Telecom, where you were responsible for business. That's what you were responsible for. So, you know, can you tell us a little bit more about how organisations can use mentoring to advance their workforce?
Well, you know, one of the things that people look around for in any company is they look around for someone to be a good example, especially when you're coming in as a graduate employee or as an intern or someone with work experience. You want to be able to look up. And when you look up, to be able to say, I see people who look like me, maybe have aspirations like me, maybe have work positions that I would like to find and to fulfill. And so as you look up, you need to be able to connect with those people. So that's why a culture in a business, if there's a culture of mentoring, a positive culture of mentoring, it will come through that you can be seen as a person of value, not just someone filling in a space, occupying a desk. I mean, for the days when everybody was in offices, which we hope will come again, but there are people filling up spaces and you'd wonder, who are they? And so when there are mentors further up the line, they know to become your sponsors as well as your mentors. A mentor gives guidance, a sponsor makes sure you get to the next level. And obviously a really good mentor would aim to do both. So I think that's about the internal culture. But then there's the other side, which is companies are full of people with immense skill, huge amounts of skill. And therefore, the world beyond us, especially the not-for-profit, the charitable world, can't often afford the expensive skills that technical companies will have, professional service companies will have, for example, accounting or business development. Now, those are skills which can be gifted by act of mentorship. So it empowers others to be fruitful and effective by gifting our skills so that other people can thrive.
Exactly, because rather than having the expense of outsourcing, you've got such a talent and resources inside the organisations, and it's just people need to obviously get on the bandwagon and get those mentoring initiatives created.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So with your work in government services, I've read about all the huge amounts of work that you've done for inner cities in Britain as well, the Centre for Global Development that you've worked at, UNICEF and Free the Children. In which ways have you seen mentoring help to overcome societal challenges?
Well, I suppose one of the most fascinating examples that immediately leaps to mind was just over a year ago, going with the Vodafone Group Foundation to one of the biggest refugee camps in the world, which is in the north of Kenya, the border with Somalia. And there we were visiting young people in their tents. Now, many young people living together in a tent, having been refugees from war and conflict. And in visiting them in their tents, watching the way in which they were using technology, but guided technology, to be able to develop learning. And you know, here's the irony: there's a young man in a tent in the north of Kenya as a refugee, undertaking a Cambridge qualification in accounting by a guided mentor present in the refugee camp. Now, and obviously the provision of the technology provided by Vodafone. So when you put that together, you can see mentors help people to think way beyond where they are. That young man could have just been stuck as a refugee in a tent wondering, when am I ever going to get anywhere? But instead, stretched mind, supported skills development, encouragement to continue, persistence to go and do exams when it feels like just go outside and enjoy the heat. The ability to see that there is a life beyond the one you've got now. That's what a mentor provides.
It's that widened perspective, and that's so important for the youth of today as well, isn't it? They don't have that vision, that future wisdom and vision to see that actually you can do anything. So fantastic advice, thank you. So as a member of the World Economic Forum's Global Council on Diversity, and with diversity and inclusion so important, what needs to be done and how can mentoring help those who face challenges in the workplace and of course in society?
Well, you know what, I remember the work that we did way back then on the World Economic Forum's diversity panel, and was that what we were trying to do is say, listen, traditional employment processes may seem fair, but they're actually not, because all of us have some forms of hidden biases, and companies are famous for wondering why is it that that Black people in particular can't progress, or a certain style of person can't seem to progress through to any further level, or why do they drop out after 2 years and never stay on? And the cost of dropping out is often more expensive than the cost of developing and retaining people. And you know what's so important in that is to say, well, look, if what a mentor can do is to help somebody realize their value intrinsically, their skills, their value, their potential, but also to make connections inside the business so that they can feel their worth. You see, it's one thing to know what you ought to be paid or the position you ought to be in. It's quite another thing to feel that this is something you want to invest in. And the invested individual helps a company to be strong, a business to be strong, an institution to be strong, an educational place to be strong, a charity to be strong. We need mentors to show us that perspective, to give us the long haul vision. You know, I'm reminded, here we are talking in Black History Month, and here is a remembrance of one of Martin Luther King's famous phrases that ultimately he said, thinking about racial justice, that the long arc of history bends towards justice. And he said the long arc of history, and he said that in 1967. And here we are in 2020, and we know so many dimensions of injustice that still pervade. It's the long arc of history bends towards justice. Things change, but you need mentors to help you stay on the path, not to give up. Very easy to go back into your bunker, give up and say, look, this is all too much, too difficult. I'll just make money and go home and watch television. But no, a mentor helps you to have the vision to believe that what you're becoming, other people can become too.
Yes, that is just so well put, and this is what we need more of, and it is that long arc, like you say. It takes time to affect change. It's not an instant quick fix, is it? So these are the conversations that we should be having. Thank you so much. And in terms of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, when all the documents and things that I'm creating at the moment, when I look at the sustainable goals, mentoring greatly has mentoring can greatly impact and support so many of them: gender equality, youth, education, communities, peace and justice, health and well-being, work and economic growth. It's incredible. So mentoring can really be a key factor in us helping to reach these United Nations goals. Do you agree?
I absolutely agree. I mean, first of all, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals should be a totem for everyone. I wear an SDG badge on a suit everywhere I go. It's really important those 17 objectives are known and understood. And number one being the end of extreme poverty and hunger. And here we are in 2020. And Chelsey, what is really disturbing and shocking is because of coronavirus and because of the impact of coronavirus on well-off country economies, they're giving less, engaging less, people are giving less. I understand that charitable funds overall have collapsed by around about 35% during the course of this year. That is often the amount of money for which something is sustainable and delivering value, or just not even able to move to tomorrow. So we need to hold these objectives right to the core of our being, realizing that the end of extreme poverty and hunger targeted at 2030. Now, according to the UN's assessment, it won't be now until 2060, another 30 years. But unless we have a mentoring culture that says, you know, let me keep reminding you when you're about to go for that excessive, unnecessary purchase, or that spending of a country's resources, or that careless way in which the charity might have said, time for us all to have a big break. No, remember, there are people destitute and needing that resource to be focused on. And again, that's what mentors do for us, is remind us that we have a conscience, and that conscience needs to come into effect. So the SDGs are about delivery, but they're also about memory. And I need, and you need, people to prod us, mentors to prod us, to think that actually there's so much unfixed in our world. Let me just go to one figure while we're on it and being very realistic with each other, is well over 1.1 billion people in the planet have no toilets. And for many of us, we're used to having 2 toilets in a home or 3 toilets, but many have no toilets. 1 in 7 people in our world has not got a toilet. And in which case, we are subjecting them to forms of disgrace and fear personally. It's an unkind experience, and often dangerous, and often unhealthy. We need to remember, and a mentor will remind you, keep on the track, stay generous, don't be wasteful, give carefully and consistently, and hold yourself to account for those SDGs, because they matter.
Absolutely, and that is so key. If every organisation was working towards all 17 of the SDGs, then I'm sure the world would be a better place. And if everyone had that mentoring culture to keep us accountable, then it's a win-win. Okay, brilliant. So from your role as chairman of the Crime Concern for 15 years, serving in the Commission for Racial Equality, in which ways, and this is a really key question for me, in which ways can you see the justice system using mentoring more effectively? Because in my role of promoting and shining a light on all the different mentoring initiatives that are making a difference, I've worked with quite a few that are working with ex-offenders, the prison mentoring system. What way do you think, with your vast experience in the sector, we can use it more effectively?
Well, you mentioned prison-related work, and I'm delighted to be a regular, consistent, and in-depth prison visitor. I go on a very regular basis to a particular high-risk prison, where the men are incarcerated for long sentences of usually between 22 and 37 years. And so it's a long journey of support that is needed. And I and one of my sons and our team, we go on a 2-month by 2-month basis, but retain a regular correspondence and a very detailed regular correspondence, encouraging these men to have hope and to have a real sense of their own skill and potential as they go forward. I wrote a letter to many of them this morning on responsible citizens. And that means that we've got to expect great people to emerge from what most of society wants to dismiss. And being a positive mentor inside a prison, not just when men have come out. And the reason I'm saying men is, of our 88,000 people in prison in the UK, 4,000 are women and 84,000 are men. I mean, the disproportion is enormous. This is a really big issue for so many who come into prison underskilled, underprepared, very often traumatized by what they've done or how things have been done to them, and the need to develop a positive mindset in readiness for emerging in as a responsible citizen. That needs mentors on a very consistent basis and a long-term basis. And so the more I think of the criminal justice system, the more I realize that, for example, I know many people who have gone towards court, for example, and they've had no one to support them. There may well have been a legal aid lawyer around, but there's no one else there on that vital day in which their life is being decided. So we need mentors at every stage of the process. And one last thing to say on that as well, Chelsey, is during my time at Crime Concern, we helped to birth Neighborhood Watch and victim support. And these were really important, as it were, identities that came from our existence. And here's the wonderful thing about all of that is to say, listen, we're all involved in making communities safe. This is not a police issue or a prison issue. This is an us issue. And we're all involved in preventing crime and making communities safe. But this is the other way. We're also all involved in helping, especially young men who may be heading down the wrong road of criminality, to be a positive, loving presence to pull them to the other side. I've seen it done. It can be done, but it's a sacrifice of presence and time that is required. And that is active mentoring.
And you mention it's a sacrifice because there's one particular example that springs to mind for me when I was working with a government programme for youth, is that, I remember one of the youngsters, coming to my session with a knife, and I'm thinking, my goodness, and he was really going down a bad path, and now he's a successful owner of a successful business. But I said, look, I promised to mentor you, I promised to help you, but you've got to help yourself and promise to change. And he did. And there's a lot of statistics and research out there to show that these certain people don't have a male father or male role model figure in their life. And can you imagine how, for those youngsters who don't have that supportive role of a male adult in the family, a mentor could really step in there and show support and guide them to another direction in their life. And that's where I think there's a couple of mentoring programs that spring to mind that I've helped promote in terms of getting that father figure mentor in to those people. So it's just so key. And then a crime affects everybody. And people, I sometimes think, they can be very lazy and think, oh, this isn't my problem. But actually it is your problem, and we all need to work collectively. Just because you think out there that it doesn't affect you, actually it does, because the more crime, the more bills, the more this, the more that, the less policing resources, and it's an absolute spiral. But it's making that commitment to mentoring that is very key, and especially with the prison mentoring. Everybody inside the prisons, they all have a skill. Everyone has a skill, and everyone has something to pass on and learn as a mentee. And that's then going to be affecting the rest of the inmates in the prison. So the knock-on effect, then that affects the prison guard and the prison guard, and then that affects the prison guard's family. And so I think that the sooner and quicker we get everybody to start thinking about mentoring as a culture, then that's where beautiful change can happen. So thank you.
Well, you raised, I just want to comment on that point you made about fathers, because undeniably, any understanding of drivers, especially for young Black men, drivers towards gang life, is the absence of secure, authoritative, positive, loving male figures in the home. And behavior is destructive behavior. So mentors can be, where that is a real issue, a positive male mentor presence from the earliest age and consistently. It's not a replacement of a father, but can be the presence that makes the difference to stop the wrong track road.
Beautiful. It's the presence. We're not trying to replace the father. And I always say to people, one word, 1 hour can change the course of someone's life. You never know the impact that you're having. Beautiful. So you've achieved outstanding success in all that you've achieved. What is your definition of success?
Oh, my definition of success is to make a difference in the world for someone else. And I'm wearing a nice bluey, flowery Nelson Mandela print shirt, which I'm sure you've noticed, and they're called presidential shirts. They're only available in South Africa, and I tended to pick them up at the airport in the days when we used to fly. And Nelson Mandela said something really important, which is, he said this: the purpose of life is to plant trees in whose shade another generation will sit. We've got to prepare for other people to benefit from the things we do today, which means we may not benefit from them. You may wonder, but I'm putting all this effort in. And how come it's going to be heading out for 40 to 50 years and somebody else will get the benefit of it? Well, that is exactly what mentoring is all about. The seeds planted, the seeds watered, the ground tilled well over, and the growth of character and life capacity. That's what a mentor helps to do. Can't do it for them, but helps to do it with them. And we should do it as consistently, robustly, passionately, and permanently as we can.
So beautifully put. And don't we, for our viewers watching, don't be looking for the fast, quick results, because it's the seeds you're planting that take a lifetime, to appear. And you never know what difference you're making, but I'm assuring everyone that you will be making a difference. Beautiful. So how do you think mentoring can help with mental health issues?
Oh, goodness me. A lot of mental health or mental health distress is about buried realities, just unspoken, unexplained, buried realities. And a mentor should be a close advocate and friend, not just a tick box experience. Let me turn up for a week, sit down with you for half an hour, whatever, and go through objectives and off we go. Because people are whole people. And what a mentor can do is literally be the first port of psychological understanding, support, just by listening. We do have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we do need to spend more time giving attention to the things people say, the way in which people present themselves. And if they present themselves fearful and disheveled and frightened and upset, well, there's no point talking about high objectives at that moment. What's important is to understand what it is that has gone wrong in the mix of this person's life to get them onto a path where they can make better and more meaningful decisions. But a mentor is there to help that process along. And mental health, we often say, well, I know this as a dog owner, that if you want to provide a sort of permanent comfort for someone who's distressed, let them have a dog or a cat, because at least you're permanently assured of their love. They never seem to huff off in a strange direction and ignore you. And we should see mentoring like that too, is that there should be people for everyone who can be that positive, permanent presence and is willing. And that's why I'm proud to say, the people I met when I was 18 and 19 and 20, I'm still friends with them now. And, we're looking 40 to 50 years back. It is really important not to see this thing as a drop-in, drop-out experience, but as a life commitment.
I'm so pleased that you touched on that, because that's what I believe. The mentors that I've had as well, and the mentoring that I've given to others, I'm always here for them. It's not like it's even with the government program, it was six sessions or 6 months, and afterwards I kept in touch with all of them. I said, my phone is always on. Whatever support or help you need, I'm here, pick up the phone. And they I remember one chap, was going in the newspaper and his business really took off and he didn't have anyone to turn to in the middle of a complete entrepreneur meltdown. And I sorted him out. It was just that ear to listen to. Don't worry, I've been there before. This is what you can do. And listen to him and calmed him down. So brilliant advice on the mental health side of it. And, how can people go about finding the right mentors?
Well, I think it's often the unexpected person who can be the best. I mean, there was I at 18 as a young black man in a room of all white people, male and female, and it was an older white man who came over to talk to me. Now, you might make the assumption, surely you, as a mentor, you need to have a mentor who's from the Caribbean or from Africa and who's same color. And no. It's not about that. It's can minds and hearts meld? And can you be connected? So I would say to everybody looking for a mentor, don't look for someone who looks exactly like you or who thinks exactly like you. In fact, if you get somebody who thinks exactly like you, there's no point having a mentor. Because they're meant to challenge how you think and they're meant to help us to think differently. And that whole point we were talking about earlier on perspective, having foresight that comes from hindsight, means that we need to be able to be challenged about the way we think and what we think and the assumptions that we make. So to find a good mentor, I think is what's critical is us first, me first, being open-hearted, open-minded. I mean, not an open mind that's like a sewer, so everything washes through, but open-minded enough to think, I really want to discover, I want to learn. Being a permanent learner, and then being a seeker. So I'm willing to ask questions. And I would say this, Chelsey, one thing I observe about our wonderful younger generation is they're very good, because of social media, at telling you what they think, but they're not good at asking what they might think. And it's really important to develop that capacity for curiosity. So those are some little key guidance. Know how to ask questions and seek to ask questions. Look for somebody who potentially is not going to necessarily tick your heart box, but is going to tick the mind box of challenge. And thirdly, make sure that you are ready for change.
Absolutely. I'm so pleased that you brought up the matching aspect, because I was supporting a media mentoring program the other week, and one of the barriers can be that everybody, if you've got some great people in broadcasting, everybody wants that mentor or that certain skill set, but you need to think wider, because it's like, I think the example was a lady in PR wanted a PR mentor. No, go wider. Work with somebody who's worked with a brand agency, who knows how to accept the press releases, deal with the agency, get the releases into the press. You need a wider circle, otherwise it's very narrow learning. So I think that is beautiful, and thank you for reminding me about the importance of not having a mentor who does exactly what you do with the same skill set. If you keep doing what you all know and do, you're not going to widen your horizons or broaden your horizons. So thank you for that. Brilliant. So last couple of questions for you. You've been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. You led the World Economic Forum's Agenda Council on the Future of Civil Society as Vice Chairman. What do you think is required to advance humanity? Big question.
Well, you see, one of the outcomes of the report that we did, and proud that KPMG supported that particular report for the future of civil society, was this: is that it's easy to think that civil society is just UN agencies, charities, and goodwill bodies, and that's the good side of society. Well, actually, the truth is, companies are also a vital part of the good side of society. I mean, many countries have gone through lockdown periods in 2020 because of coronavirus, and everybody's relied on the supermarket having to be open. Well, those aren't charities, those are commercial businesses. We've relied on electricity coming, as it were, through our walls. Those are not charities, those are commercial businesses. We rely on water coming through our taps, not charities, commercial businesses. So the need to have business actively involved in when we're facing issues, dramas, dilemmas in society. So the need to have a holistic vision that civil society is made up of all the actors committed to the good society that we rely on in order to live free and fair. And in countries that are struggling with freedom and fairness, we need to show them the model, actually, that it's not just about the obvious agencies that are civil. It's about everybody's duty to be a responsible citizen. And I give you a quote from none other than the former president of the United States, Barack Obama, when he launched his great Obama Institute in Chicago a couple of years ago. And he said this, which I've never forgotten. He said that the most important job for all of us is not to be president or prime minister, king or queen, chief executive or chairman. The most important job for all of us is to be a citizen, be an actively engaged participant in our neighborhood, our community, our city, our country, to be involved in solution making and solution giving. And that way, everything about the mentoring journey comes to mean something of value, because I'm pulled onward to be more by giving more. And I'm made more by giving away more. There's the irony of it all. The more you give, the bigger you become.
Absolutely, and everyone needs to be a mentoring citizen. I love that.
Absolutely.
And Obama was very, very key in with some mentoring initiatives at the White House when he was there. his mentoring initiative, I think from memory, was called Big Brother, Big Sister. And it's just like having that big brother, that big sister to turn to as a mentor. And I remember when I created my initiative 9 years ago now, Michelle Obama's speech in the White House with that mentoring initiative was one of the key drivers in me going global with what we're doing. So fantastic. Thank you for reminding me of that. So I guess that brings me to a close. Why are you supporting our mentoring mission to make mentoring accessible to everyone?
I really believe that mentoring is a positive plus in everyone's life at whatever age, and that positive plus is something we need to encourage in a society where people are too isolated and too disconnected. So having active mentors who are visible friends that we see, and in the good days also experience their presence with us, and to learn from others is to continuously enrich our mind, is to enrich our own potential. So we need to, I'm very keen on National Mentoring Day. I'm very keen on mentoring as a wholesome experience. I'm very keen that hundreds of thousands of people come forward to be mentored with wide open ears, but hundreds of thousands of others come forward to mentor, to say, I've really got some good knowledge to pass on here, and I'm fed up of just sitting back doing the Telegraph crossword or whatever it happens to be. I'm going to get out there and give time and life to others. So congratulations. You're doing a wonderful work, Chelsey, and all the team involved in National Mentoring Day, and I look forward to being with you.
Thank you so much. And my final question, what is the one thing you want everyone to know about Lord Hastings? Put you on the spot.
Wearing flowery shirts in professional situations, and I think one of the other things that's lovely about when you get older, but also when you have positions and titles and all those other wonderful things, which I'm immensely grateful. And I have to say, none of them, and I just say this for transparency, none of them sought, none of them paid for, none of them longed over, all given. Very grateful. But you know, one of the things that happens to you when you get to my age is you don't worry about looking perfect. You just be.
And that is beautiful for everyone to take on board. Just be. Don't try and be someone. Just authenticity is so wonderful to see now. Is really, really coming forward. You got to be who you are. You know, it's just so absolutely key. And so that concludes our wonderful interview. I've learned so much. I'm sure our viewers will. Thank you so much, Lord Hastings. I'm so grateful to you for personally supporting us in our beautiful mentoring mission of making mentoring accessible to everyone. I'd like to thank you for your contribution to humanity, to society, for all the great things that you've done in supporting mentoring as well and supporting us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.